Hello, everybody. Our victim this evening is Damian Hall, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction. Ultrarunner, coach, largely reformed journalist now, is that right?
Yeah, recovering. Yeah.
Recovering. That's good. Damian's done a lot of stuff, some of which we'll talk about this evening. Most notably, he has written a book, In It for the Long Run, Breaking Records and Getting FKT. I like it so much, I've got 2 copies, plus the printout of the advanced copy that I had. So if that's not a big endorsement, I don't really, I don't know what is. How are you, Damian? Anyway, how are you getting on?
I'm really well, thank you, Ali. That's very kind of you. And I greatly enjoyed your book. Although I can't resist asking you a question, which I'm sure is what everyone else wants to know. Are you going to take your cap off and reveal what's underneath?
So speaking of,
I did say I'd only do this talk if you had a mohawk as well.
I've already had a text from someone in the chat asking if my hat is hiding a new hairdo. This was done an hour ago.
Are you?
Quite hurriedly by my girlfriend, who turned the clippers off, stood back, winced, and said, "Oh, Ali, it's fucking awful." my thinking was, what's better than 1 mohawk?
Hold on. 2?
The answer is not 2 mohawks.
Oh, that's amazing.
There we go. I don't know what was in my head, but it wasn't that.
I don't know what is on your head.
No, that's like 2 large dead caterpillars. Your girlfriend was right. Yeah, well, I mean, she would tell you that tends to be the case. Yeah.
I'm speechless and amazed and in awe and trumped. My ferret has been trumped. Double whammied.
Your ferret has been trumped. Let's not dwell on that. Anyway, let's stop talking about hair. You've written a book. How did you find the experience of writing a book? It must have been quite a reflective process, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, some bits go well and some bits go less well, I suppose, and you have to sort of force them. I guess I'm lucky in that down the years I've sort of financed a lot of these little adventures by turning them into magazine stories. So I sort of had stuff to call upon, like, you know, write-ups that I could refer to, which was helpful. But yeah, there were a couple of all-nighters. It did end up a bit like an ultra. I mean, it starts off, you know, full of beans, full of confidence. The wheels fall off towards the end. It's a bit, you know, barely held it together as I stumbled over the finish line. A couple of all-nighters. The nutrition fell apart towards the end. But I got it done. And it's just about readable in places, I think.
I go further than that. I think it's majority readable, in fact.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So is yours.
The only bits that aren't readable are the pictures. Dug myself out of that very well. Did it allow you to think about your running career? Your running career to date, by the way. If at any point I ask you questions that make it sound like you are finished and ready for the glue factory, it's your own fault for writing a sort of retrospective of all the running you've done. Looking at it all in a oneer, like the progress of your running, did it change the way you view any particular races or performances, or did it change what you might prioritize in future in terms of running?
I think what it did is it made, I think when I sort of did my first ultra marathon in 2012, it felt like a bit of a sort of happy accident, like sort of, yeah, basically a magazine editor called my bluff. I was asking to write about my first marathon, which I ran dressed as a toilet. And he said, no, I'm going to send you on your first ultra marathon. So it felt like a sort of accident. But when I looked back, before that, it seems really obvious now that I was leading towards that stuff, because I was sort of, I don't know, doing long distance hiking, doing some of the I suppose, mountain challenges around Britain, National Three Peaks, Yorkshire Three Peaks, Welsh 3000s, those sorts of things, walking the Pennine Way. I just had no idea that people ran them. So I loved doing them. I just didn't realize you could carry like a quarter of the kit and go faster. Like, that was a bit of a revelation when I started to hear about that. But no, when I look back, I suppose it seemed really logical that I would end up doing that sort of stuff. But at the time, it felt, like an accident, a happy accident. I suppose that was my quite self-indulgent take away from that, really. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. You were punted onto your ultra journey by an editor, but you were dragged even further by the Bath bats. This is one of the bits of the book I found quite interesting. Can you tell us about these guys? Because it's not a formal club, is it? It's just this sort of informal group of.
I honestly, there's a danger that some of them are tuning in here, and of course the first rule about Bat Club. Can't talk about Bat Club, but I guess I put it in the book, so it's a bit late. But yeah, I feel very lucky. There's a local club here, but totally informal, totally unofficial. You won't find it on the internet. I mean, I suppose, for those people lucky enough to live in fell running regions, when they join a fell running club or a running club there, I'm guessing it's a similar process, that they start hearing about the big rounds and these epic adventures, and it fills your head full of sort of bad ideas. I guess it was similar down here. And it all started, actually, I used to commute into Bath from my Wiltshire village. And as I did, I would pass this man nearly every day running, but he didn't look like the other runners. He had, well, for starters, he had 3/4 length tights. I still don't know what they're for, but his kit was mostly on kit. And I remember thinking, that's not a make. I don't remember, and his pack looked serious, like it was for mountains or something. He definitely didn't look like, he never wore a bright, luminous top. So he didn't look like the other runners I saw. And I remember just thinking, I want to know what he knows. He does exciting stuff at weekends. I want to know what it is. And to cut a long story short, got in touch. He lived in my village. It probably did sound a bit stalkerish when I got in touch, but he was super enthusiastic, and he sort of said, "Oh, come and join the Bath Bats, who are a nighttime running club around Bath, where I was super intimidated to turn up, and I downed a bottle of Lucasade in the car beforehand to try and have the confidence to go and meet these sort of heroes, these chiseled heroes. And I went for a run with them. It turned out they were more interested in the beer and chips than the run. But amazing group of people who were very welcoming and filled my head full of ideas. Especially Tim Laney, who's crewed me on the Pennine Way. He'd done hard rock and all the rounds, and suddenly your head's full of ideas. And Alan Cox was another one who had done UTMB several times, and he started filling my head full of that one. And so I would just come away from these runs just my head exploding really with ideas of what was possible. And they just gave short shrift as well to things like running 100 miles, which to me at the time, I think I'd done maybe my first ultra around that time, but I was very, very new to it. And they also would meet up twice a year, but I did the winter round. It's called the Dan Booth round around Bath. And we met at, I don't know, six in the evening, and ran for like 5 or 6 hours in the night, like all around Bath, all around the hills. And again, it felt like Fight Club. It felt like this secret club. And I remember thinking, these are my type of people. I like this. And I hope I haven't blown the secret out. But that was quite a formative moment looking back as well. Mostly just, putting bad ideas in my head.
Are you now the person running along the side of the road in the 3/4, sucking other people in and putting ideas in the heads of ultra running ingenues?
I still don't have any 3/4. I don't understand them. Don't understand them.
You obviously have well insulated knees.
I think I do. Yeah. What are they for? Do you have some?
Yeah, and they're sort of the best of no world, I think. I tell you why I have some. I have some because at Trophy Okima you have to wear them. Either 3/4 or long tights and like knee-high socks. So I thought I'd go for the 3/4 instead of the knee-high socks.
Okay.
There you go. That's the only reason I own them. And I wear them sometimes, and all they do is get really wet. And so your legs get really, really cold, as opposed to just really cold, which they would if you were wearing shorts.
Okay. So you're saying I don't need to invest in a pair imminently? Should be okay.
No, I think no. Unless you're going to run Kima next year, then no. I think you're probably all right without them.
All right, that's a relief. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that one sounds too short for me.
That's the education bit of our brief covered for this evening. I'm aware that I'm kind of asking you about other people here more than I'm asking you about yourself. But one of the themes that I kind of set upon in the book was how willing you are to get input from other people on your running. So various coaches, now you're working with David Roach, Shane Benzie doing the form stuff, Josie Perry, who's a sports psychologist, and Matt Holmes and Renee McGregor and all these people. Do you think it's made a big difference to your running career, your level of performance, to have all these diverse kinds of input?
Yeah, I think that's been really important as well. And you asked about writing the book, whether it made me look back at things, and I was quite lucky in a way, I think, because a lot of my early experiences of sort of, I don't know, running races or running stories for magazines, I'd often be interviewing maybe an expert or an inspiring runner. And so I guess I was getting in touch with these experts really early, sometimes almost accidentally again. And yeah, it was actually when I qualified for the GB team, you sort of had to send I did okay in a trial race in 2016, but you still had to submit a CV. And I remember writing a letter to the selectors saying, maybe it was a surprise that my name was so high up on the finishers, but actually I've been taking this quite seriously when I thought about it. And I'd thought in the last 3 years before, I'd worked with sports dietitians, strength coaches, physios regularly, coaches, blah blah blah, as many people as I could, actually, because I was obsessed with it, really fascinated in how do you become the best runner you can be, how can you get better. It still intrigues me a lot now. I'm trying to think of a slight sort of humorous ending to that, but it's all come out quite dry. But yeah, I think go to experts. Yeah, because Facebook, social media, it's great, but sometimes going on Facebook and saying my ankle hurts, what should I do? What do you think? I think that seemed like maybe not the cleverest way to proceed. And I was lucky. I had access to these people. So experts.
Has your experience of all that stuff affected how you now work with your coaching clients?
Yeah, I guess I'm quite lucky. Several of those same people support me as both a runner and as a coach, I suppose. So I can go to them. For example, I coach Renee McGregor, but she's right there with advice when I need it for my clients. So yeah, I feel very fortunate in that respect, because when you look back after whether it's UTMB or a successful record run, you look back at how many people have helped you, and often it's a huge amount, as well as all the people on the day. Still struggling for a sort of witty end to the question, right. But I'll leave it.
Writing books is way easier because you've got like weeks to think of a punchline.
And still there were none. Yeah.
I do have on my list of questions, no any jokes, but we're going to leave that for later. But you're forewarned, you can think about it while I haver. Adrian Stott, you know Adrian?
Yes.
Yeah, he's read your book, and I'm stealing a line of his from Twitter because he's put it better than I can. Damian's wonderful narrative is a classic of perseverance making the seemingly impossible almost inevitable. And I think that is a really good summary of certainly my impression of your career trajectory, right? Like you obviously have some aptitude, and one of the most relieving things about the book is that you're not one of these people who says, "Oh, I just worked hard." You confess that you've responded well to the training you've done, but you've looked at the bigger picture, and you've brought all these people on board to help you with every different area of your running, right? You've not just thought, "Oh, I'll run more miles," or whatever it might be. And I think in that respect, there's not a lot that someone like me can learn looking at the training of Jim Walmsley, right? Because he's really good because he can do 300 kilometers a week as marathon training, right? Not even ultra training. Whereas someone like you can say, right, I've done this, I've sorted out my diet, I've done strength and conditioning classes every morning at 8 o'clock, all these different things. And I think that's a very useful thing to have done. My question is that do you approach racing in the same way as you approach your training? Like, you're quite methodical. You're a bit of a steady Eddie.
I'm boring, aren't I? You could say it. Only the average are consistent. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've never really done a Zach Miller.
No.
I've definitely had. Sorry?
Have you been tempted to try?
So I did have one spectacularly bad race early on, which was the Lakeland 50 in, I think, 2014. And it was probably only my 6th ultra, actually, maybe. But I'd done quite well at the spine race. I was 4th at the spine race, I think. So I thought, okay, I'm okay at this stuff. Maybe I'll do well at the Lakeland 50.
Only 20% the distance.
It's easier, right? And also that was a GB trial race. And anyway, before that race, I didn't know the name Kim Collison. Afterwards, I definitely knew that name. And I already knew of Marcus Scotney, but I didn't see very much of him. But I was very, my second child was born that year. I just hadn't trained smartly or just nearly enough. But I did think, I'm going to see if I can stick with these fast boys. So it's those two. It's Danny Kendall, Stuart Mills. Who else? I think there were Lee Kemp, I think, was there. It was the top sort of domestic guys at the time. And yeah, I didn't hang with them for very long at all. And I was soon walking a flat section, blowing up in the heat. I thought I ended up in the top 20 or something, but it wasn't what I'd been thinking of. So that was probably the only time I've really wanted to, try to go out hard. Trying to think if I've done that at any other times. I think just early on, just that cautious tortoise approach seemed to work. And so I've almost got, it was really interesting listening to Beth Pascal, actually, who's a good friend. And a year or two ago, she was a bit troubled, I think, because she was finishing 4th all the time. But I mean, she was finishing 4th in the best races in the world. So I don't think she should be agonized over it too much. But we have had a similar approach of sort of, like trying to save something for the second half of a race ultimately. And actually that Highland Fling race in 2016 where I met Adrian, where the next GB trial, which went much, much better for me. I mean, that was still fairly conservatively sort of executed, but I was just much, much fitter, I suppose. Drank more Coke. Maybe it was that. Wasn't as hot. But yeah, I suppose my racing has been reasonably consistent. Although, I mean, if I'm honest, I've won very, very few races. Maybe that's why the FKTs suit me, because not so many people have run.
This is something you said either before or after UTMB in 2018 that you were 5th. Right. Yeah, and that you'd looked at the splits from previous years, and the people who were ahead of you went out harder than you. So you were being slightly less conservative. Does there come a point where in these Ultra Trail World Tour races, the level is so high that you need to take some risks?
Yes, and I maybe should experiment a bit with that in the future. I think I did. Yeah, I had a bad race 2016 at the Eiger Ultra. I was still, I think, 7th or 6th. But yeah, that's a tricky one because I did the Paddy Buckley round only a few weeks before, and I already knew that would have compromised the race. And then, reasonable amount of altitude, enough to make you, the breathing was funny. So it's difficult to know. But yeah, all right. Next race, Ali, I'm going to do a Zach Miller. All right.
This is the difficulty of running ultras, right? You get 2 or 3 a year where you're in really good shape, and you don't want to kill yourself in the first 80k and then feel silly in the second half as everyone comes past you.
Yes, I think most people here have had hopefully both feelings. The one of just being dead on your feet and being overtaken by people. Not as good a feeling if you've not had both as the opposite of that. It's brilliant passing people when they're dead and just going hi and being all cheery and annoying. In fact, my first UTMB, I remember someone bouncing past me, with 10 miles to go, just happy as anything, and I was dead and just thinking, I've got to be that guy next time. I've got to be that guy because he looked so happy. And I mean, if he was anything like me, he probably, once he got around the corner, he started crying again or something. But it's fun to put on the act that you're enjoying yourself. Yeah, I mean, pacing is a fascinating subject, isn't it? And yeah, just another aspect of what makes this sport so exciting and hard to get right, I suppose. But yeah, I promise you, fingers crossed, that next race, Zach Miller, off I go.
Spot on. You mentioned FKTs. It's not quite in the title of your book, but it is in the subtitle, so I feel it would be remiss of us not to talk about it. You're prolific in that respect. You've done all 3 big rounds. You had 2 Paddy Buckley records, the Pennine Way, South Wales Traverse, so on and so forth. What's the appeal to that? Is it different from racing? Because obviously your other big thing is these World Tour races. Do you approach them differently, or yeah?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot when I was putting the book together, and I asked a lot of other people as well. How are they different? What's the appeal? And I found that very interesting. I mean, and you looked at that in your book as well. It's especially say, again, Beth Pascal, she was quite open. She'd still rather do a race, for example. I did feel last year, maybe it's just so long since I've done a race, but I got so much from my 3 sort of record runs that I almost felt actually I prefer these. There is a nice element to them where it's a team, like you're all the only real enemy or is John Kelly or whoever had the record before. You're a team working together. We don't have to be a team. Some of these things were solo, but there's a really nice feeling. And I think Dan Lawson gave me some really nice quotes about his joggle in my book about just this atmosphere of you're all there helping each other, and that's a bit different to a race. But races are great fun. But yeah, when it's your own challenge, and it doesn't have to be a record attempt, of course, you get to design all the elements. What style will you go in? When will you do it? Where will you do it? And that's really exciting, and it adds a bit more, not risk, but a bit more jeopardy. And you've got to make a lot more decisions. So it's a bit more mentally tiring in a way. Sometimes it's easier just to rock up to a race and you don't have to think about too much else. But I really enjoyed it. And I was feeling like those experiences gave me more than races, but that might just be that I haven't done a race for 73 years. I think they're brilliant. And obviously, lots of people were doing them last year and this year. Even as we speak, people are out and about in the hills, and I think May's going to be a bumper month again. But yeah, they're just brilliant fun.
April's already been a bumper month.
April.
It's ridiculous. Like the Southern Upland Way, the Paddy Buckley, the Cape Wrath Trail, the Five Coast Path.
There'll be nothing left.
I think this year might be better than last. I think there might be more going on. Those who missed out last year will be doubly motivated. Those who had a great time last year will be motivated by that. Who knows?
I think, yeah. I think they're brill.
I think they're brill.
In summary.
I mean, that's a good summary. I'm gonna share some photos of your Pennine Way, seeing as we're on the FKT topic. There you are.
I thought you
looking. Do you remember what you're looking at in that photo? Is that like the
That's
way?
just called acting. That's acting, Ellie. That's hey.
Oh,
I'm ready for this.
yes, prepared. One of the things you write about in the book quite well is losing records, right? You talk about watching Christian Morgan's tracker on the Southwest Coast Path as being like seeing your house getting burgled in slow motion. How does that feel? Because a race result is, you know, unless someone finds something in your urine sample, that's not something that gets taken away from you. You will always have a 5th place at UTMB. Does a certain run no longer being a record change your perspective on that performance? Does it diminish it? Are you just as happy with it, proud of it?
I think it'd be a shame if you. Yeah, I think it'd be a shame if you looked at it differently afterwards. I still have, yeah, each of those days, and they don't have to be even a record-breaking day on the hill. You know, when I did a Bob Graham and a Charlie Ramsey, there was no intention of doing any record botherings there, and they were still just brilliant days out. Most, you know, type 2 fun mostly. You know, you're cursing and grumbling and swearing when you're doing it, but afterwards, very, you know, some of the best days of your life were out on the hills. So it's I don't think it changes that at all. But I've got to be honest. I remember there's a lot of nice noises about people breaking other people's records, but I remember asking Nikki Spinks, sort of, I think when Jasmine started breaking her records with almost insulting speed. You know, I said to Nikki, you know, what's it like? And she says, well, it's not nice. And I liked her sort of candor. And yeah, you don't enjoy seeing someone break your record, I'll be honest. And yeah, the first instinct is because we've all got egos, and if someone does better than you when you had the best, you know, the best result, it's, you know, it's not as good as still having the best result. But I think you've got to, remember it's not all about the records. I don't think. I've still got all those brilliant memories from the Southwest Coast Path and Paddy Buckley and whatever, you know, other records I've lost. That was the thing with this FKT frenzy. It was great seeing all these records, but then I started losing some, so I wasn't so much a fan of it then. But yeah, it's not. I don't think really it's about the records. I don't know if that sounds a bit cheesy, but it gives you something to go for to sort of put your best effort in, and that's good.
Interesting. The only one of my records that has ever been broken, let's not dig too deep into the reason that there's only one, was the Cairngorm 4000. And so 2-3 years ago now, I was running the Glenshee 9 race, which is 30-something kilometers of god-awful Southern Cairngorms tussocky crap. It's not very nice. And I had a pretty bad race. I just didn't feel very good. And so I came in at the finish and I slumped down at this picnic table and someone hands me a plastic cup of quite weak orange squash. And I spill half of it down my front. And Andrew Fallis, who won the race and is at least metaphorically showered, fed and changed, wanders over and says, "Oh, all right, Ali, well done, good run. Yeah, did you hear that Finlay broke your 4000s record?" And I had not heard that Finlay broke my 4000s record. This was the first I'd heard of it, and I was already at a low ebb. And it was just a punch in the gut. And it took me a while to figure out what I felt about it, actually. Because as you say, it's nice to have the fastest time, and particularly, like, they're my local hills. I feel some attachment to them. It's a route I've done lots of times. It's a route I still do quite regularly. And so
to get the record back,
being able to look at them from my work, like you can see them from the window, I'm like, I've run those faster than anyone else. But I think later on, it's actually quite cool to have Finlay Wild break one of your records. I was like, well, if it was going to be anyone, might as well be like the UK's best bell runner, maybe. So,
and did it change how you how you look back on it?
I don't think it does. It's probably still one of my best runs. And it wasn't perfect. Even at the time, I thought I could have gone a minute or two quicker if I'd had one or two extra gels. I remember climbing out of the Larry Grue. There's about 30-40 minutes left at this point. All I had was this slab of flapjack. And you've been running really hard for 3.5 hours, and it's a hot day, and it's like I'm not even going to try and eat that because I will choke myself to death. But losing the record didn't change any of those reservations. And it's Finlay. I'm not beating Finlay in a 4-hour hill race. That's just not going to happen. So that helps, I think, having that sort of perspective on it, perhaps. Anyway, enough about me. These are Dave McFarlane's photos, by the way, and they're fantastic. They're really good. There's a few of Dave's photos of Dan in my book on his Land's End to John O'Groats. And I really there's a bunch of good people actually involved in the media side of this stuff at the minute. Him, Matt and Ellie, Steve Ashworth as well, who was out with you. I think he appears in this slideshow later. How do you find having the film crew? Do you just roll with it, do your thing?
I have a contract actually where I won't actually go for a run without a film crew. No, I think it's, in a way, it's quite easy because it's nearly always Matt and Ellie, and they're really, really good friends of mine. So, in fact, Matt is the guide father for my son. So, it just feels like hanging out with my friends. And similar with Lee from Innovate when he's popping along to do socials. Yeah, it's just friends, and it does seem to focus me as well. When they've been along, I've never really had a bad time. It's nearly always worked out. I think it's always worked out well. In fact, they were at that Highland Fling race that was sort of a key turning point for me. So yeah, they're a bit of a lucky charm. All right, I'll admit, on this Pennine Way run, when I was feeling pretty wrecked on the second day, and I just wanted to get a little kip, and it just felt like in my sort of fatigued, warped mind, it felt like everyone had a camera pointing at me, and I did kind of want to say, "Oh, go away," but I didn't really mean it, and it was all right. I mean, it's just flattering if people have got some interest in what you're doing, because someday they won't have any interest, so probably quite soon. Although if I was going to say, if I sense that happening, I'll try and get a haircut like yours, but I can't actually carry that off nearly as well as you. So can't do
that. Inevitably, with really long stuff, people want to talk about training. One of my bugbears in interviews with athletes, ultra runners, is the sort of really short answer to what's your training like. Like it's 100 miles a week. And it's like, well, do you jog twice a day? Is there a 40-mile race pace long run? Are you doing 1-minute hill reps, 10-minute hill reps? So as far as you can recall, and without giving away too much of the David Roach secret sauce, what would a typical week of Pennine Way training have been like for you?
So yeah, David Roach is a I think he's got a what's the word, a formula. He knows what he's doing. He's definitely put a pep back in my stride, or yeah, something like that, whatever the metaphor is. Yeah, until about 18 months ago, I was self-coached for a couple of years, and I did have my my best UTMB run when I was doing that, and I was doing sort of more mileage than before there, more volume, and I suppose I was averaging probably 80-90 miles a week, to answer the question in your favorite way, but probably not much else. I was just doing 80-90 miles a week with as much vert as possible. I was probably doing that most of the year round, but having a great time, going to the Beacons or Snowdonia, and then I just, I could sense myself plateauing really, and I just had a few results that weren't quite as good, and I just thought I should get some input, and so I've been working with David. So his thing is it's all about running economy, and nearly everything is targeted towards that. So for example, it's very rare we'll do sort of medium length intervals. So like things like 1 mile reps or 1K reps, they don't really happen. It's much more like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute reps, intervals rather. Loads of strides, 20 to 30 seconds. So they're not quite a sprint, but they again are designed to aid economy and neuromuscular adaptations. So nearly all the time you're working on economy. Mileage isn't high. 70-mile week would be, it's nearly always 60 to 70, just over 60 to 75, which for me, that's low mileage compared to what I was doing. And yet I feel, shock horror, I feel a bit fresher. But then when you get closer to a big challenge or a big race, you sort of switch to a specific phase. And that's when you, as the name suggests, get in that more specific training. So your longer runs get longer. Up till then, they're not especially long, often not 20 miles. But then when you're in that specific phase, still actually rarely above 25 miles, but longer runs, back-to-back runs, often with tempo sections in the long runs, could be 20 minutes, could be even an hour. So the focus switches a bit, and there is more volume in that phase. And really, in a way, that's kind of it. But he just knows stuff. And he just says you're amazing every day, which I quite like.
I'd find that quite disconcerting, I think. I mean, I guess
you're amazing, Ali.
But thanks. I'll go out and run some PBs tomorrow.
He says it in different ways.
He's got a thesaurus.
I think he may have. I should tell him that you can do that online. Yeah. I find this. Was that an okay answer? Was that enough detail for you?
Good. Yeah, that's an 8 out of 10, I think. I mean, to get more than that, you'd have to put up like a screen share of your training peaks or something and talk us through things in minute detail, and we don't have time for that. But I find it really interesting how the way that people train for these things, I mean, different people do it in different ways, but how it's evolved. Have you read Mike Cudahy's book?
Most of it, yes.
Wild Trails to Far Horizons, or Far Trails to Wild Horizons, or one of those things. He, for anyone who doesn't know, Mike Cudahy was the first person to run the Pennine Way in under 3 days on his 7th attempt, I think. And he talks about some of his training for his successful attempt. And he was going and training on the Pennine Way. He would do back-to-back 60-mile days, have a day off, and do 2 more back-to-back 60-mile days. So like doing a month's worth of your day in, day out mileage in a weekend. Whereas now, John Kelly, whose record you cruelly broke, is also coached by David Roach. I don't imagine that he sets you exactly the same training, but imagine it's pretty similar. And you guys are performing better.
I spoke to Mike Hartley as well before my run, and he said he was running 170 miles a week.
Yeah.
And often, I think he'd do back-to-back 40-mile runs. I could be wrong with that, but yeah, to get 170 miles into your week, you'd probably need a couple of those. Yeah, so some of the ideas, well, I was going to say some of the ideas are different now, but Jim Wormsley's doing similar, isn't he?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I sometimes wonder, if these guys had, if they had David coaching them, would they be performing much better because they weren't overtrained? Were they just exceptions, people who could handle that? Don Ritchie is the same, the stubborn Scotsman who ran 6:10 for 100k. He was running 180 miles a week, and most of it was like 6-minute miles to and from work. And you read his book, and there's an awful lot of stuff in there about him peeing blood and an awful lot of talk about his physiotherapist, and yet it produced still the 3rd fastest 100k time ever, in the 70s, in a pair of Reebok whatevers. It's yeah.
I mean that's I'm really intrigued in about training, as you would hope, I suppose, if someone's making a living as a coach. I mean, I found I could sustain kind of 80, 90, 100 miles a week, but was it making me better? And after a while, I don't think it was. But for a while, I think it was a sort of aerobic, stimulus that I hadn't really done that much before. I think it benefited me for a bit, but would it carry on benefiting me personally? No, I don't think it was. And yeah, so I mean, but I would say if someone hasn't tried higher volume, then with caution, being careful and focusing on recovery a lot, it might be something worth trying. It might help them. I think it kind of gets addictive though as well. It's quite. I used to start off a week thinking I've got to hit this amount of miles in my week, and that was totally arbitrary figure, you know. So yeah, more isn't always best. I think.
There's a really good Renato Canova line, legendary Italian athletics coach, that training is not the work you do, it's the effect it has on your body. So it's not the numbers on the page that are necessarily that important, although it is so easy to get bogged down in those things. The last year and a half, year has been pretty strange. Do you expect that pandemic, cancelled races, growth in interest in setting records, long trails, big rounds, all the rest of it, is that going to be lasting behaviour? Do you think that we've seen a permanent shift in the landscape of the sport?
Ooh, I thought you were the expert on all this. I should be asking you that. Yeah, I think it has changed things. I mean, I think obviously when hopefully a full race calendar returns, I think a certain amount of people are obviously going to go back to that. But personally, I am gonna probably do fewer races and more solo challenges. I think I prefer them. So it's changed me a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what other people do and think as well. Do you think it's changed things sort of permanently?
I suspect it might have, and obviously, it's not a binary thing. It's a shifting of the needle. It's the Jon Snow swingometer, right? But certainly, you speak. You mentioned about Beth Pascal. One of the things she speaks about is how she wants to test herself against the very best athletes, and as these records are broken, the standard improves. So the opportunity to have like a real serious challenge for a real serious top level athlete closer to home is more realistic, possibly. I mean, but it's not going to replace the sort of thrill of race day and actual racing, but there could be some of that. And the other thing we must talk about with you, which is related to this, is climate. This is your cause, right? Did you have a particular? Was there like a light bulb moment for you?
I think so. If I'm honest, yeah, I feel like I've been sort of radicalized by Extinction Rebellion. I remember, seeing their protests. It must have been on the internet because, I don't get around to watching much telly. And I think like a lot of people had this sort of climate change fatigue. Like you see all these headlines, polar bears are struggling, the glaciers are melting, it's getting a bit warmer. Oh, there was a lot of flooding the other day. That was unusual. But you just got so used to it, I suppose, that you just felt, oh yeah, they'll sort it out. Politicians will sort it out. And then I suppose they woke me up a bit. And if I'm honest, my should credit my sister. She was she lives in Bristol, so I think it's obligatory if you live in Bristol. She's been involved with them for a while. So I started looking into the science and actually, oh dear, it's really, really urgent. And the politicians, especially in our country, really aren't treating it with the urgency it needs. Scientists say we need to reduce global emissions by 45% this decade. 45%, and almost nothing. And our government are opening coal mines, extending Heathrow, allowing more drilling in the North Sea for gas, making domestic flights cheaper, all the opposite of what we're meant to be doing. And yeah, I just, especially as a parent, I just can't stand by, I suppose, and do nothing. But then it was like, what do you do? And that's trickier, because yeah, I was definitely inspired by Dan and Charlotte at Rerun Clothing. Hopefully everyone watching this is aware of their great work. And then Jim Mann with Trees Not Teas and Future Forest Company. And I was really inspired by them, and they were, they're actually doing something. I couldn't think of exactly what, a thing to do. So I sort of at least looked at my own footprint, and I was lucky. I found this company called Our Carbon, who was sort of a new, you do carbon accounting now, or carbon auditing. And increasingly lots of businesses are doing this, and rightly so. And I was just intrigued by my own footprint, I suppose. Like, well, if I fly this many times in a year, or if I'm eating beef and dairy, what does it mean? How much is it? What's my footprint? So I worked with them, and that was really interesting. And it was actually really easy to reduce my family's footprint dramatically by diet. Well, the three things for most people would be, stop me if I run out of time. The three things for most people are your travel, your energy, and your food. Energy is really easy to fix. You can switch online in a few minutes to a renewable energy supplier like Bulb or Ecotricity. Diet, a lot more, a more contentious issue, and people get very tribal about what they eat. But yeah, we all have to eat less meat and dairy, and especially red meat. And then travel, I suppose, and that was like, I was like, well, I travel to races. That's what I do, and I was a bit confused and conflicted about that. But actually, it was quite easy to. Well, it was been quite easy not to fly for a year or so. I don't know if anyone else has found that. But yeah, I just decided I wasn't willing to keep doing all that flying. I haven't been as brave as some people, and sort of said I won't ever fly again. But yeah, I think for me it's hopefully just once a year at most from now on. But really, the idea that we should look at our own individual carbon footprint comes from BP, because they don't want people to look at them so much. So they invented the idea that we should all look at our own footprints, and I have done, and I think a lot of people will find that maybe worthwhile. But really, we need to turn it back into a political issue, I think. And luckily this week, I don't know about it there, but there are a lot of local elections happening. Sorry, I didn't mean to go quite the soapboxy moment, but I think political and protest actions will have a lot more impact. And just lastly, before you cut me off for being too boring, I would say, I'm a hypocrite. I'm a climate emergency hypocrite, but people have to be less afraid of being a hypocrite, I think, because like Jonathan Pye said, you're either a hypocrite or an arsehole, because almost everything we do releases emissions. Like we're releasing emissions now doing this. Our food, our clothes have embodied emissions, almost everything. And so you can't stop that. And you can't wait until you stop that, until you speak out. So we have to, I think we should be less afraid to be a hypocrite. So I'm a hypocrite, but I'm doing I was going to say I'm doing my best. Probably not, but I'm trying a bit.
I think for a lot of people who share our interests and like to do the things that we like to do for fun, there's a lot of dissonance in this, right? Like I remember running along the south side of the Chamonix Valley, the side you come down at the end of UTMB, and you look across at Mer de Glace, and it looks nothing like it does on the postcards. Since the 1970s, it's a mile closer to the Grand Jurass. It's just receding, and it's this grubby little thing. And you look at it, and it's really depressing. And you think, oh, someone should do something about that. And then I flew here. I could have got the train, but I didn't because it's less convenient. And then, well, that's something I can change, right?
Yes. No, I think it's important for us all to sort of look at what we're doing, but really, I think we should pressurize politicians and companies, corporations, because flying shouldn't be so cheap. it should be cheaper to get the train. There should be, subsidies on solar power. Not at the moment. I believe you pay something like 5% VAT if you buy coal, but 20% if you on solar panels, I believe. And so all these subsidies, and a lot of the farming is subsidised. A lot of the fossil fuels are subsidised. That has to change. I think it's a bit of both. But you're right. Yeah, if individually you're doing what you can, I think it gives you a bit more. I don't know. You sleep better anyway.
Yeah. Shout out to Dan Lawson, who got arrested for gluing himself to the ground in front of a police car at an Extinction Rebellion rally. He
did. I only managed to get told off for standing on a wall, which is quite meek, really.
Were you glued to the wall?
No, wasn't even glued.
That's the thing. Needs to be like water-soluble glue or something, though.
Now I know.
I don't know if that's a thing or not. Do you think that the pandemic thing, and well, this is tenuous, right? Because I've been thinking a lot recently about the UK domestic ultra scene, and you've described a few races where there were really deep fields, like the Lakeland 50 around that year. The Highland Fling is stands out in my memory. It was you, Kim Collison, Donny Campbell, Robbie Britton, Joe Simmons was there, Jason Cavill, all these other people. But those races in the UK with really deep fields are the exceptions, right? I don't know if I asked you this. I asked many people recently what they thought the most prestigious win in UK ultra running was. And most people sort of hummed and hawed and then just chose their favorite race. And there are prestigious races. There's the West Highland Way race, but it's very difficult to get into. Lakeland 50, Lakeland 100 maybe struggles because the course isn't marked and it's a time of year where it will clash with other races overseas, all these sorts of things. Do you think there's the possibility that the standard of domestic racing in the UK will improve as people travel less for races for climate reasons and because of pandemic stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it should do, shouldn't it? It should do. And I mean, I'm busier than ever as a coach, and other coaches I've spoken to, like Jason Cavill and Kim Collison recently, actually, and they're all really busy. So it feels like there's a whole load of speedy ultra runners about to be released whenever there are. Well, I suppose races are back on now. Yeah, I hope so, because it's a bit of a shame, really, that there's not some really competitive domestic races. Yeah, I hope so.
It would be, how amazing would it be if we had something like, Western States? If the West Highland Way set aside 50 places for elite runners and you could win your way in from the Highland Fling, from the Northlands 50, all that stuff. And it would be so good. I get so excited about this. And it would be so perpetuating. Like as the demand goes up, the standard goes up. And it just
I suppose what UTS might become that. It's got the Ultra Trail Ultra Tour World. I forgot how you say it. It's been so long.
World Tour.
That one. It's got that stamp on it, so that might give it something. And while you were listing those earlier, I suppose in a way the Spine race is a headline grabber, but it is it's quite a unique sort of race. A lot of people aren't going to do that one, and especially actually faster runners probably aren't going to do that one. But maybe UTS will become that one. But yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Shout out to the Centurion running guys for getting it going on the track. We just need to convince James Elson to put on a 100-mile mountain race. Probably involve a few weekends away, though. He doesn't really live near the mountains, does he?
Tricky, yeah.
We have some questions. These are even questions from the chat. These are questions from before we started. People are keen to pick your brains, Damian. Do you have go-to strategies for getting over low points, bonks in races?
Low mood, eat food. Yeah, nearly always it's
very good.
Yeah,
it rhymes, so it's true.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the number one thing I do. If I ever have if I have any negative thought in a race, actually, it's like, pop a jelly bear baby in. Yeah, that's the first thing to do. And then usually it's maybe, have I been going a bit too fast recently? Should I stop? Should I slow down a bit? Liquid as well. Yeah, that's the number one thing. Yeah, low mood, eat food.
Any sayings or mantras? We're onto the writing on the arm here.
Oh, onto that one. Yeah. Yeah, my mantra has become, I suppose, don't be lazy, which I goes is I suppose the polite version of don't be shit.
There was something about a snail.
Oh, in that film, I said something like a sulky snail or something, didn't I? Sulky snail. Yeah, along the Pennine Way, I was turning into a sort of sulky snail. Wasn't really sulking about anything other than just felt tired, Yeah, so it's self-pity. I think I read in one of Ranulph Fiennes' books, actually. He kind of said the person he was crossing Antarctica with for, 3 months or something, he said the worst thing happened. He began to get self-pitying. And so, yeah, it's very easy to slip into that, isn't it? And then you forget that you've been looking forward to a race for, I don't know, all year and training for it all year, and you paid a lot of money, and and then suddenly you're like, oh no, I hate this, I don't want to do this. So I think it's sometimes just trying to remember that. Yeah, but it's got to be a personal thing for people. I think whatever works for someone isn't going to necessarily work for someone else. So it's got to be personal.
Ties in a little bit with another question we had, which is, do you think that ultra running is a white privilege sport? Yeah. So when you're feeling bad in a race, just remember how lucky you are to be there.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, our sport is. Yeah. I mean, it's overly male. You could almost say it's overly middle class and midlife crisis demographic as well. All of those boxes of which I tick. Even got the midlife crisis haircut. Although if mine's a midlife crisis haircut, I don't know what yours counts as. Just a crisis haircut.
I think a breakdown haircut.
Yeah, I don't know if that's our sport could definitely be more diverse. I don't know if I have the answers for that one. And I mean, from a gender point of view, I love women are often. I mean, this is partly anecdotal, but women are often better at this stuff than men. I find it, the people weeping in a chair in the checkpoint. I don't think I've seen any women doing that, but I've seen lots of men doing that. And yes, it would be good if our sport could be more diverse. But I don't know what the answers are. I admire the work of Black Trail Runners. I think a new group, got at least one friend in there. Yeah, impressed with what they do. I do offer BAME athletes a discount for coaching, although I must admit I'm at full capacity at the moment. But I forgot exactly what the question was. Oh yeah. Also, what I think of sometimes, I've got friends who've got, I don't know, injuries or can't run again, and it's easy to forget them, and they would love to swap places with you. So it's lots of reasons to keep going.
What bucket list events do you still have? As much as I hate that phrase, I apologize for using it.
What records have you got left? I want to.
I mean, you're welcome to the Cairngorm Big Six. Just knowing that you've gone through that traumatic experience would more than make up for losing the record.
The Big Six. I like the sound of that one.
There's 7 of them.
Bucket list. Well, I was a bit envious. We were chatting before we started that you've got a place in the Tour, haven't you? That's one. That's one I fancy. What else? Yeah, there are still lots of good races. There's 1 or 2 in America that tickle my fancy, but they're hard to get into. I definitely do want to do the Tour. I think I'd really enjoy that.
It's got you all over it. It's just like Pennine Way meets UTMB
with a bit of spine race thrown in. Yeah, just being absolutely exhausted and a complete wreck of a person for several days, somewhere beautiful that you're not paying any attention to. What's not to love there?
The course is wonderful. Have you been around the valley?
No, only a tiny bit. A very tiny bit. Yeah.
There's a few 200-mile races around now, and I suspect that most of them have quite a lot of filler, whereas Tor is
all thriller, no filler.
Yeah. It's like
it rhymes, so it's true.
Alpine single track. not quite throughout, but near enough. And it's this big aesthetic thing. There's all these, like, there's the Matterhorn, there's Mont Blanc. Anyway, you should do the tour.
I should do the tour.
Any tips for vegan nutrition for athletes?
Yes. Well, yeah, this is a tricky one. You do have to be a bit careful with your vitamin B12 and your vitamin D3. I'm not a nutritionist or dietitian, so I can't recommend you take those as such, but they're things to look out for, as well as iron and branch chain amino acids, I believe. So you do have to be careful if you make a dramatic change to your diet. If you're running a lot, I did it quite gradually, if I'm honest, with the advice from Renee McGregor. But yeah, there's loads of really healthy, tasty stuff. And if it's like vegetables, you can just eat loads more because it hasn't got many calories. So it's brilliant, actually. Yeah, it's great. And nut butter's allowed, so I'm happy there. I know it takes about a week to get used to like alternative milks in your tea, I think, for me anyway. It's fun. Yeah.
If you want to get rid of the milk in your tea, the best thing to do is go on a backpacking trip, because powdered milk is a pain in the arse. And so you just have it black and you make the trip long enough that you just get used to it, because that's all there is. And then you come home and that's your habit now. There you go.
Is that what's happened to you?
Yeah. Laziness is basically the reason I don't have milk and tea anymore. What are your plans for this year, Damian? You have a place in UTMB again. And
well, it'd be rude if there were lots of record/FKT attempts going on and I didn't throw your hat in the ring. Yeah, I've got a little scheme brewing for whatever John Kelly does. I've got a little scheme brewing for late May, which is I'd rather keep the details to myself, but it's similar. It's similar to the Pennine Way in that it's it's got a similar record history. That's a bit annoying. I'm talking annoyingly, aren't I? Well, that's just what I do. I found another Mike Hartley record that's quite old, which I might have a go at. I'll leave it there. But also, I do believe, I think we will see some more action on the Pennine Way. Not necessarily from me. And on the Wainwrights as well, although we're already seeing that. So.
Would you go back to the Pennine Way? I mean, John's already said that at some point he wants to have another go, and anyone who's seen the film knows that his attempt was not exactly plain sailing. He can go faster. Speaking to Martin Stone, you basically got lazy in the middle third, so I think you can go faster.
I was a bit lazy. Well, if someone beat it at the moment, I think it might interest me. I guess it depends a bit how well they beat it by, if it's 10 minutes.
2 days flat, then.
Yeah, you might just go, fair enough. You have that one. Are you having a go, Ali?
I mean, if Nikki Ligo has her way, then yes. But hopefully she won't, so no. I find this really interesting, though, because there's a social media thing among mostly like elite sponsored runners, but also some punters, of publishing like your race calendar, right? Someone
I can exclusively reveal
graphic with their sponsor logos and them like leaping through the Alps, and then this list of dates and exotic places. But when it comes to setting records and FKTs, everyone's got their cards very close to their chests. No one wants to let on what they're doing.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, maybe someone else will get there first.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Can't have that.
No,
that would not be allowed. So, what are your predictions for this year, as specific or as vague as you like, and the more outlandish, the better?
Do you mean generally for the year, like?
Yeah.
What's going to be fashionable? Who's going to be number one?
Yes, those things and running.
Yeah, I'm a dad, so I don't know about that stuff. I think we're going to see a bunch more records and FKTs, and it sounds very much like the Pennine Way's going to have some runs on it, and the Wainwrights, I think I've heard quite a few attempts going on that one, so I think that's going to be really, really exciting. It's going to be a dot watcher's wet dream again, I think. And then I guess it's only natural that people are looking for newer rounds and things, so you feel like some sort of yeah, some almost hipster choice rounds and sort of less well known efforts. Like, what was your thing? The Super Sevens or something? Those sorts of things. People will go for Ali's one, everyone. Yeah, like, yeah, I've been looking at some not obscure, but less, less well known ones, because I got to get some wins somewhere. I'm sponsored. I need some wins. I've got to get some results.
I was talking to one of the judges for the FRA Long Distance Award panel last year, Manny Gorman, and we were just
getting hard for them. It's a difficult job. It used to be easy.
The thing that Manny really lamented was the lack of originality. Like, he was very impressed by everyone going out and running really fast times on this, that, and the other. But you look through the list of winners, and very often it's for people doing something new. Manny got it for his Corbett round, which no one had done before or has done since, because it's a tremendous pain in the arse. But like John Fleetwood's won it for like quite esoteric things that maybe haven't been repeated. So I think there's a lot of scope for novelty. And I think one of the problems is that people are tied to the round as a format. Obvious like loops of hills that you could do in 24 hours and which are quite nice aesthetic lines might be running out. But I think there's still a lot of scope for people to do some really interesting point-to-point things, which is an unusual thing in the UK. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head is the Joss Naylor Challenge, which you need to be an old duffer to do. So
yeah, and I mean, there's good point. There's things like the Welsh Coast Path as well, which could, or Wales Coast Path. But you're right, and that's what's great about it. You can create your own stuff. Yeah, you got me scheming there. I'll give that some thought.
Oh, well, as long as you don't scheme the same things, that's okay. I don't. That we will somehow. Oh, Ian Stewart, the Cairngorm Park run. You should go and do that. Now that is, if the Big Six is no fun, the Cairngorm Park run. Ian Stewart last year ran between all the Munros and the Cairngorm National Park, 400 kilometers of heather and bog.
It's quite a long way.
It's a really long way, yeah. He was quite tired at the end.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. We're this close to rambling, so I think we should probably let everyone go to bed, unless anyone has any more urgent questions, or unless you have anything you're dying to tell us that we've not covered so far.
Would you take your hat off one more time, please?
I'm worried now that it's got dark. I'm worried what the change in lighting will look like.
It'll look even more devilish.
I mean, I don't want anyone to lose sleep.
That's brilliant.
We tried to do some masking tape, keep it clean, but it wasn't working. And there's always a bit of a disconnect when Karen cuts my hair, because she's like, oh no, it's squint. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It really, I don't care. It's almost the point that it looks really bad.
I am in awe of you. I think that's admirable.
Admirable. Well, thank you, Damian. This has been, when did we last see each other?
Oh, blimey.
Was it in Chamonix?
I saw you at the Highland Fling. I must have seen you since then.
I think I saw you in Chamonix after one of your UTMBs. You once referred to me as your lucky charm, because I showed up at, I think, 2 of your good races.
You were there at the Dragon's Back. We were both top 10 there, weren't we?
No.
Weren't you? In the men's. Ignore that. The women are in a different race. I know lots of women beat us, but they were in a different race. In the men's race,
I was top 10 for the first 2 days, and then I was bottom 10 for the 3 days after that.
Oh, that sounds uncomfortable.
I did a lot of walking, yeah.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, good times.
Good times. I want to do that again. They've got that extra day now.
Well, I mean, that can be quite competitive, that race, or at least, I mean, that's one that could take off, possibly. Although it's at a time of year now where it's, competing with Tour de Gion, you could say, and stuff, and UTMB. So I don't know, but that's an absolutely belting race.
It Yeah, I mean, we were talking about doing things point to point. There's your sort of logical end point of that format, point to point across the entire country. Anyway, thank you very much, Damian.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for your haircut above all else. It's made mine look, less stupid.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm going to jump in and say thank you. That was brilliant, highly entertaining, enjoyable evening. Yeah, really, really good. Share it with people who didn't come to watch because it definitely deserves watching. Ali, really kind of, your stuff. That was really impressive. Yeah, Anna's posted it in the chat. But the thing that I forgot to mention at the start was that although some of you have very kindly offered to make a donation at the point of registration, that was only 30% of you. So 70% of you opted to not make a donation at registration and make a donation later. That'd be fab if you could do so. The way we do it, the model we do it is that we split the proceeds 50-50 with the speakers and with Shaf. So we reinvest our money into putting more talks on and paying mine and Anna's wages. As we scratch a living, and the speakers do with it what they will. And I believe that Damian has offered to donate his share to Greenpeace from tonight. So anything you donate, 25% of that will be going to Greenpeace. So that would be more of an incentive. Anna's posted the details and I'm going to email them out to you now as well. So along with resources and links and other bits and pieces. So thank you very much, everybody. This is actually the last talk in the current series. We've decided to give it a rest for a while because the evenings are getting longer and people are out running and climbing and doing all the things that we've just been talking about. We will come back. We've got Vassos Alexander lined up sometime and a whole other host of people. So if there's anybody you'd particularly like to hear speaking, drop us a note, let us know. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a bunch more people talking about the FKTs that they've done over the coming months, talking about them come next autumn when the evenings start to draw in and we come back online again. And if you didn't know already, Shaf is on the weekend of the 9th till the 11th of July in Sheffield, a real life festival, we hope. That's what we're planning for. Anna and I have been in town today, walking around, looking at the outdoor spaces that we might use that we've never used before because it's in July, not in March. So really looking forward to that. And yeah, over and out. I'm going to, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just quickly allow people to unmute themselves. There you go. If you want to say anything, if you've got a burning question for Damian or Ali, if anyone's got Mohican, I could let you turn your cameras off and you could show us your Mohicans. Anyway, yeah, you can unmute yourself if you like, and I shall close the meeting any minute now.
Great chat, guys, tonight. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to reading your book, Damian.
There's a bunch of people saying in the chat they've enjoyed themselves. I think it's been a successful night. Brilliant. I'm going to end the meeting then. Thanks, guys. I'll speak to you later, and good luck with your FKTs, the pair of you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.